people to take humankind on an evolutionary shift. We're doing this every day, whether we're aware of it or not. We are seeing and experiencing how the old ways of being are dying. And the new ways, the new evolved ways, are being birthed. Now, it doesn't always feel like that. It doesn't feel like we're evolving, but we are. We are evolving. Because right now, I'll tell you, right now it feels a little chaotic, if you agree. Systems are completely changing. They're changing. And we've been talking about this huge shift in consciousness since before 2010, which is when we birthed Joyful Gathering. We've been talking about this huge shift. I don't know, I just felt it coming. I didn't know what it was, but I have to admit, I think it's here now. I think it's really here now, because this is what we talked about, systems breaking down, everything shifting and changing in life, so that we may evolve, because we are evolving. And you'll see that, hopefully, by the end of the talk. This huge change that is occurring must move our consciousness higher. It must. And I really do believe that we are spiraling upward, because I always believe we are spiraling upward. I don't believe in this teaching and in my life, and I hope you agree, that we go backward. We only go forward. And every circumstance that we find ourselves in, that we are part of, are part of who we are, so we must evolve from them. It makes me personally go deeper and deeper and deeper into what I believe. What I believe, what I can do, how I can be, how I respond to different things that I might not find pleasing in my life. And that is the evolution. We always evolve. God always evolves. So we're always evolving with this mystic consciousness, this mystic, what did I have down? I'll get to it in a minute. Dana would know. She's in, Dana and I are in this very intense 30-week advanced consciousness class, my second one. This is 2, advanced consciousness 2, which is quantum physics. And it's quantum science that is merging with metaphysics, which is what we are, metaphysicians, and explaining it scientifically, which is absolutely, have to use Michael's word, brilliant. Can't say that word without thinking of Michael. Yeah. But it is brilliant. It is because Ernest Holmes knew. He knew intuitively, and he wrote about it, as did Thomas Trowick. So, I don't believe, though, that this means for us to live a life, because things are changing, and as humans can kind of resist change, but I don't believe that it means that we should live in fear. No, that's the opposite of what we want to do. But rather, that we are so much more than we think we are. We are more powerful beings than we really know. And we can be, and we can do so much more than we think we can do. We are creating with every thought, with every word, with every action in our lives. We are creating. What we're focusing on grows, okay? What we are focusing on gets larger, and we're creating our lives. So we don't want our dreams and our goals to be scary. We want them to be great and wonderful and all that good stuff. But if they're not feeling a little bit uncomfortable, we're not stretching enough. We're not stretching our consciousness enough. And of course, being a catalyst for the evolution of humankind, which is what we are, catalyst for the evolution of humankind, and that's a pretty big stretch. So we might feel a little uncomfortable or a little scared at times. We are here at Joyful Gathering to support one another. We're here to be with each other, to be a community that speaks the word, that feels the love, that is what I believe the absolute truth of why we are here on this planet at this time. So, last time I gave a talk was 1 month ago. Thought I was going to cancel again. I wasn't. I thought I broke my hand this week. But I texted my prayer partners, don't worry, I'm going to be there, even with a cast on. But as you see, I don't have a cast. But I'm here, and I was going to be here. Because I want to give this talk, and it's the second in a series of talks. And if you don't remember the other talk a month ago, what I talked about in my last message was laying the spiritual groundwork of who we are and what we are doing on this planet. And since it's been so long, and because it would be good to reground ourselves in that spiritual foundation, I want to take us on a similar journey that we went on in the first week in January in consciousness. So, if you were here, this might sound a little familiar, but we're going to do it again anyway because it's going to add to our evolution. So if you would, in a little process here, just close your eyes. I invite you to close your eyes. And take a deep breath. See in your mind's eye a calendar. You know the kind. They sit on top of a desk and show the month of January. It was January 2025. Tear that off. Then see the year as it is unfolding. So tear off February 2025, and then onto March, April, right up, all the way. Keep doing this until you reach January 2026. Now leave that sheet on the calendar for now. A year from now. You are now in January of 2026. And you and all of humanity have taken one upward revolution around the evolutionary spiral. You have a greater awareness of who you are. You have a greater understanding of how life really works. You have an expanded consciousness, and you are living in harmony with the greater good that is always, always available. And those of you who did this at the other talk may want to deepen into your awareness if you remember what you got from this meditation. This is a deepening even further into the awareness. And from this perspective, take a look at the outer life, your outer life. Get images of circumstances. situations, the world in which you live in, and see yourself living the life you desire to live in, the world you desire to live in. And get a really good, vivid picture of this life, this world. In January of 2026, a year from now, see how relationships have evolved or not, physical well-being, financially abundant. See a country that is filled with peace and order, and vision who you are and what you are doing. Now stay inside and grow really within and check out the internal landscape. Your internal landscape. Notice how you feel about yourself. Now, what does the larger world around you look like? Now that all of humanity has evolved, what does the world look like? How are we relating to one another? Take a couple of really deep breaths. See the calendar pages returning to their original order. So you see December 2025 returns. We have November, October, all the way back to right now, even though it's February, beginning of February 2025. And you are back here in this time space. Take a moment to reground yourself. Bring yourself back to the room, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Excellent. You have now added to the collective mental equivalent, that's the mental picture that we set at the last talk, whether you know what it was or not. They're all on YouTube, by the way, under my name. We have enrolled, by doing this, more co-creators in this vision to enlighten, expand, and evolve our future. And today we continue to set the course for that evolved future. And we're going to look at ways of being. Ways of being, no matter what is going on around us. Ways of showing up in the world that will cause us individually and collectively, because what we do individually affects the collective, because there is only one consciousness. One consciousness. This creative force that we call God is consciousness, pure consciousness. And we are all pure consciousness. There is nothing to separate us from it. So what one does affects all. To take an upward resolution around the spiral of evolution, we are using, for inspirational insights, a book by Andrew Cohen, Evolutionary Enlightenment. And in that book, Cohen sets forth 5 tenets for evolutionary enlightenment. And today we're going to explore the second one. The second tenet of evolutionary enlightenment is what Cohen calls the power of volition. Volition means our choice, our will. And personally, I would have called it the power of responsibility. Because that is what it really is all about. Being responsible for every single thing in our lives. Moving out of that victim consciousness that so many have been in, and most people still are in. We are taking responsibility in this tenet. And it asks us to be responsible for nothing less than the destiny of the evolutionary process. We're always evolving. We are always spiraling upward. I cannot believe that we go backward. It might look that way, it might feel that way, but I don't believe it. Everything takes place for a reason, for us to grow and learn. If we pay attention, if we really pay attention to what's going on and how we are reacting and responding to everything that's going on. So there is a story about a soap manufacturer who is walking with a minister. The soap manufacturer says to the minister, "You know, the truth you teach hasn't helped the world very much. Look at all the hate, the illness, the poverty, the war in the world." As they walk, they pass the park with these children playing and getting really dirty, because children do. And the minister said to the soap maker, "I see the soap you made has really not helped the world very much in cleaning up its dirt and filth." The soap manufacturer replied, "Well, soap only works when you use it." To which the minister replied, "Just like the truth we were talking about. It only works when we use it. We can't just speak these nice words, these platitudes of absolute good and growth and evolution, unless we live it, unless we actually apply it to our lives and use it, just like the soap. Just like the soap." It's a very, very appropriate story when we are talking about this thing called personal responsibility. In religious science, New Thought, which is what we are, we teach the truth that we are each responsible for our relationship with ourselves as God. With ourselves, hear that, as God. Not in God, not of God, but as God. If there's one consciousness, and we are all that consciousness, and this infinite creative force is that consciousness, there's only one. So as God. There is no intermediary between God, no priest, no minister, no holy mother, no son through whom we must go in order to connect with God. And if you want to hear that kind of teaching, there are 2 churches going on right downstairs that will gladly share that with you. But we do not believe in any kind of separation from the oneness or in the oneness. We do not believe that in our teachings. We teach that every living being has already established direct personal and intimate connection with God. Already. It's already there. But it is our responsibility to use it, to experience it. God doesn't force itself upon us. It's within us. It's always there, but it's not going to jump out and give you information. But if you want that information or direction or guidance, then turn within. It's there. And it will provide. It feels like intuition most of the time. Intuitively. That is a still small voice within us. That is that divine consciousness that we are. At any time, we can simply, through a desire, open ourselves up to it, since it is within us. And remember, God is a cosmic name. We call it God. The cosmicness of the allness, the wholeness, the everything that exists, that could ever exist. That's this consciousness. That's what quantum physics is teaching us. This consciousness of oneness. It's proving it. You cannot have something change over here and not have it affect I don't care how many light years away it is, something on the other side. We all affect each other. And as humans, we have a collective consciousness. We have a collective, so when one thing happens, it affects all. I don't care what country it's in, it's affecting all. So the parable, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the parable of the prodigal son, that I'm not going to get into. But Ernest Holmes, who wrote Science of Mind, writes in the book, on page 466, in case anyone needs it, he writes this: "This is the most perfect lesson taught by the great teacher." And he's speaking of Jesus as the great teacher. God turns to us as we turn to God. We take one step toward God, and God comes running to us. A more beautiful thought could not be given to us. As we look to God, God looks to us. It's all within us. It's everywhere. In addition to this concept, we teach that truth that we are individually, each one of us, responsible for our relationship with the whole. And remember, what we focus on grows. So what are we focusing on? What we don't want to see? Are we focusing on that? It's a real discipline right now. This is where the growth comes in. To bring ourselves back and remember that we are responsible for our feelings and for our actions. We teach that truth, that each is responsible. And the way that our lives unfold comes from that choice of responsibility. Holmes again writes, Ernest Holmes, in Science of Mind, "The normal functions of life are harmonious, but we interfere with these in our ignorance, and thus bring discord into temporary being in the life process of automatic functioning, both in our bodies and throughout the universe. As a whole, the laws of being are set and immutable. While in the use that we make of the law of cause and effect, and there's always cause and effect, in our individual experience, we are responsible. My cause and effect might be different from someone else's, because my thought might not be that other person's thought, but we are all using the same law. It is a spiritual, divine law. We are all using it, and it gives us back what we think into it. So it works one way for this person, this group, and this way for this person. It doesn't make one is better than the other. We are responsible only for our thinking. We teach these truths about personal responsibility. Yeah, we teach them as a movement. But do we live them as individuals? You know, science of mind and new thought, especially when you go to the conferences, seem like, oh, everybody feels like this. Everyone thinks like this. We are so in the minority. We are so in the minority. I feel like we are so far advanced because we believe in the evolution of the oneness of all that is. And the way we embrace the task is first and foremost by making the spiritual effort to take responsibility for all what makes us who we are today, who we really feel, what we believe. It's our responsibility. And that means striving to come to terms with all of our past, all of the future that we focus on, and all of the now, all of it. Now, Cohen, who wrote the book, wrote this. It means courageously stretching to embrace all the historically accumulated complexities of your present circumstances. Historic, it's feeling really personal to me right now because I am calling this February, and this is a Black History Month. It's been erased. It's been erased from all the data on the computers. You can look it up. It's gone. There will be no Martin Luther King Day. It's gone. But I am celebrating the whole month, and I invite you to do the same. No one is going to wipe the history of what we now believe in away unless we let them. That's our choice. That's where we get the choice, the volition, the responsibility. The evolutionary impulse, when it is awakened to itself within you as your authentic self, has no hesitation whatsoever about embracing responsibility, your authentic self. And I love this question that Cohen poses on page 126 of his book. How can an energy and intelligence, that is God, that is powerful and audacious enough to have given rise to an entire universe have issues with responsibility? You think God, not that it's separate, but it sounds like it, is walking around saying, oh, I'm not taking responsibility for that. That's all. That's that group. That's that species. That's that multiverse over there. No. And we don't believe in that separation anyway, but just struck me as kind of ludicrous. But for many of us, our identity has been shaped both consciously and unconsciously by the belief that we are victims. It's all happening to me. It's all happening. That person, let me blame that person. We might even think of a couple of people that are really big right now that can never take responsibility for their lives. Well, it's up to us, a choice we can make to take responsibility or not. Consequence will follow. It always does. We're calling it evolution. So, our identity has been shaped both consciously and unconsciously by the belief that we are victims of fate, of circumstances, and of other people. And now of our government. The separate ego. We all have an ego. Doesn't go anywhere. That's where I disagree with Course in Miracles. Love Course in Miracles, but I don't think you can kill off the ego. So we all have an ego, and that's okay. It's our belief system. The separate Ego does not want to be fully accountable and tends to hide out behind one excuse or another. Abraham Maslow studied high-functioning people in the 70s, and he found they were common denominators among his subjects who were living more fully. So he studied that. Among the common denominators were they all had a vision for their lives, and they were committed to that vision, that tenet that we're talking about. The first tenet was clarity of intention. We did that the first week in January. And this one is the choices that we make and taking responsibility for those choices. Higher functioning people, do you think that's another way of saying highly evolved people? I like that better. Could well be. We are moving more and more into being those people, as well as taking 100% responsibility for ourselves, for our joys, our sadness, for all of it, our prosperity, our lack, our health, our disease. If you dissect the word responsibility, you'll find it really means ability to respond. That's what it means. How we doing? How we choose, I'm up here going, I'm up. How we choose to respond to what is put in front of us makes all the difference of what our experience will be. How are we responding? You should experience something less, so if you should, than what you desire. You have the opportunity to take responsibility for yourself by asking these questions. What can this teach me about myself? I've been doing a lot of introspective work. So with all these feelings that are coming up this past week or two, what am I feeling and what am I growing within myself? What does it teach me about me? What can I learn about me and the world from whatever the situation is? And how can I use the situation to grow? When you find the goodness and the gifts in all of life situations, because I don't care what's going on, there's always something good. There's always a lesson for us to deepen into, to evolve with. Even the most difficult situations, the universe guarantees more goodness and more gifts. For today, some final words from Cohen on this very powerful tenet of responsibility. It is powerful. He writes this: if we really want to create a different future, we have to get over ourselves. Think about that for a minute. Get over yourself. I thought about that. I'm like, get over myself. Get over myself. You know, I like myself. All right. But I got to get over myself sometimes, you know? After all, this is back to Cohen. After all, in the light of the fact that it was you who chose to initiate the entire evolutionary process, what are a few physiological bumps and bruises along the way? In light of the fact that the process is now deepening, is now depending on each and every one of us to create the next step, even the deep scars of ethnic and cultural conflict are no longer valid excuses for holding back. He's still writing. From the biggest perspective, do we really have the time to excessively dwell upon the past, excessively go into the future of what might be if. So my friends, this is our charge. This is our charge. Let 2025 be a year of no more blame. Whoa. Gonna have to practice that. No more blame. Can't blame anyone for anything. No more blaming God for what has happened to you. No more blaming parents or relatives, teachers, religions, ex-spouses, current spouses, the economy, the politicians. 2025, let it be the year that we take full responsibility for our lives. With the upheaval, with the chaos, we're still evolving. And the uncertainty, because there's a lot of uncertainty right here and right now that is occurring in our country. Try not to blame others. It's so easy to do. It's so easy to do. Let us stand firm in our convictions, what we truly believe is the right and correct thing for us to do. Let us stand firm in that. Let us take responsibility for our responses and our actions. And when we do, we will move ourselves and humankind forward on that upward evolution, that spiral of evolving. So let us do that. Let us really go within and see what is activated within us and see what we can learn from that. Because we are evolving. We are definitely evolving. So I am so happy I am evolving with all of you. And so it is.
So it is.